Good evening from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. Democratic women and their condemnations of convenience. That's the topic of tonight's angle. New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand now says that Bill Clinton should have resigned over that Lewinsky scandal back in 1998.
Is it your view that President Clinton should have stepped down at that time, given the allegations?
Yes, I think that is the appropriate response, but I think things have changed today, and I think under those circumstances there should be a very different reaction.
Let's face it, the reason Kirsten Gillibrand has suddenly found sense is that she's positioning herself for a 2020 presidential bid. She wants to run for higher office. And it's interesting, by the way, how she mentioned Lewinsky, but conveniently forgot about all the other women who accused Bill Clinton. Juanita Broderick, Paula Jones, Kathleen Willey, and yes, there were many others. Now, when Gillibrand was running for office in 2006, whom did she call to help her raise money? Bill Clinton, of course. And she, like many Democratic women before her, had no problem at all turning a deaf ear to the complaints of sexual assault that had dogged Clinton for decades. And you know why? Because, let's face it, he was an uber fundraiser. He was fantastic at it. But with sex pigs now being called to account for their misdeeds in the wake of the Weinstein scandal, well, Democrats have suddenly discovered a moral conscience. And now they even see their former heroes with new eyes. Bill Clinton wasn't a degenerate when he appeared at every Democratic convention since he left office. And I guess he wasn't a bad, degenerate sexual harasser when he was feted in New York at the Clinton Foundation galas. And he wasn't a sex pig last month when he campaigned for Phil Murphy in New Jersey. But now that his wife has lost the presidency and Bill is under new scrutiny, he's suddenly a leper to the party that enabled him for decades. Sell it somewhere else. None of us believe it. The truth is, you have to question how seriously these Democratic women take sexual harassment. These are some of the same women who held a pep rally for Bill Clinton in 1998 after his impeachment. Oh, I love that photo. A Mount Olympus of female Democrats were in attendance. Feinstein, Pelosi, Boxer, Mikulski, all of them standing and clapping like a bunch of seals for Bill Clinton. The only thing missing was the fish throwing to them. No, this newfound courage among Gillibrand and the rest is little more than political expediency. And the Democratic Party knows what we all know. The Clinton brand is over. It's damaged. The Clintons have outlived their usefulness, and the usefulness to the party is nil. So it's safe to throw him under the bus, safe to look away, safe to say that he should have been canned when he was found out about Lewinsky. So enough with all the glowing praise of Gillibrand for her brave stand and the Democratic truth tellers who are now coming around to acknowledging Bill's lecherous past. They were opportunists then, and they're opportunists now. And that's the angle. Joining us now from Van Buren, Arkansas, is Juanita Broderick, who accuses Bill Clinton of raping her in a hotel room in 1978. And from Little Rock, Arkansas, Paula Jones, who sued Bill Clinton for sexual harassment. He settled with her for $850,000. Paula and Juanita, it is great to see both of you. I'm just delighted that both of you are here. And Paula, I want to start with you. What went through your mind when you heard Kirsten Gillibrand today and basically Mika Brzezinski on MSNBC, both saying that, oh, yes, Bill Clinton should have resigned after the Lewinsky affair?
Well, it's just a little bit too late for that now, isn't it? So it makes you wonder if they really, truly mean what they say. Because us women did not get any kind of help whatsoever from any of those liberal women. They ridiculed us. We were called all kind of names. We were not believed. And I hope that it's true that they think that now, but I don't know that I believe it.
Well, Juanita, what's happened between now and 1998 when your accusation really got a lot of attention and when Lisa Myers bravely pushed NBC to get that on the news? I mean, What's changed, except is that Hillary is not president. She's not in the cabinet. The Clinton Global Foundation is frankly has been exposed as the fraud that it was with the pay-to-play that was going on there. And so the Clintons aren't useful anymore. So now suddenly, oh, he shouldn't have done that. And he should have resigned.
Oh, I know. It's absolutely disgusting, Laura. This great epiphany that should have occurred 20 years ago coming about now is, I should feel ecstatic about it, but I don't. I feel very disappointed that they waited 2 decades to do this.
Were you surprised, Juanita, that Kirsten Gillibrand didn't mention you? I mean, she mentioned Lewinsky because, of course, that was the subject of the impeachment proceeding. Her relationship led to the impeachment because he lied under oath. But he didn't mention you. He didn't mention Paula. He didn't mention Kathleen. She didn't mention Kathleen Willey. It was only Monica Lewinsky. I wonder why.
I think it's too dangerous to bring us back up again. They do not want to hear from us, Laura, and that's the crux of the matter. They do not want our names to be brought up again, and we're being brought up by everybody else, so I can understand why she didn't include us.
Paula and Juanita, I want you to listen to something that Hillary Clinton said today in an interview with our friend Rita Cosby on WABC. Let's watch. Listen.
Every situation has to be judged on its own merits, and there were allegations that were disproved. It's unfortunate that people are either misremembering or misinterpreting history.
Paula,
I'm not
misremembering.
I'm not. No. No, that is so ludicrous what she just said. I mean, seriously, I cannot believe that that lady would say that, and nothing was misinterpreted. I know what happened to me in that room that day. And I also know that there was some lady named from the New York Times that had quoted some Miss Goldberg lady, said that she believed Juanita, which I'm happy because she should believe Juanita, but she also should believe me too. And she said that that was not true about me. Well, how would she know unless she had some kind of a relationship with him or something, and she's been looking at his private parts? You know, how can she say that I was discredited when I was not discredited? You know, I mean, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals was going to take it all the way to trial, and then Bill Clinton settled. Why would he settle if it had been thrown out at a lower court? People don't do that if you're not guilty.
Well, maybe Hillary Clinton's title of her book, What Happened, should apply to her whole
we're telling her
life
what
with
happened.
her husband and what she did. Yeah, we know what happened.
Yeah.
Juanita,
exactly.
Juanita, if you might, Juanita, could you go back to that horrible encounter that you had with Bill Clinton, especially after he pushed you and your lip got bitten basically or hurt, and what he said to you in that room?
Right.
Actually, we have the sound. Actually, we're going to play that again from your. Let's play it from your original interview. Let's watch.
Second time he tries to kiss me, he starts biting on my lip. When everything was over with, and when he got up and straightened himself, and I was crying at the moment, and he walks to the door and calmly puts on his sunglasses. And before he goes out the door, he says, "You better get some ice on that." And then he turns and went out the door.
Put some ice on that, and
yeah, it's still, it's so painful to hear it now. Even after all these years, it's disgusting and painful.
And I want to know why
Mika
Hillary would not want to come to us. I'm sorry. I just want to know why Hillary wouldn't want to come and talk to us women. So if she believes it's not true, then why don't she talk to us, talk to each one of us, or talk to us together, and then she can come to a conclusion herself. But she never even was asked about us women during her campaign. Isn't that ironic? Isn't that funny that none of this come out about her womanizing, predatory husband who did these women so wrong, all of us, and it's just beyond words that nobody would
Paula,
want
she
to
did
ask her
talk
about
to
this. And
me.
why wouldn't she want to ask us? Oh, well, she threatened you, but she could at least have talked to us and at least found out for herself, and talked to us to see how credible we were. But she didn't want to. You know why? Because she knew. She's
No,
been
she didn't
enabling
want
him for
to.
years. No, she didn't. She's been enabling him for years. She's been hiding this stuff for him for years. If you're married to a man and you don't know that your husband is doing this, something is wrong. And they claim to have such a wonderful marriage, and she stood by her man. But let me tell you, she knew what he was doing, and the only reason why they've ever stayed together is because it was a political marriage.
This is
I
what
agree
Philip
with that
Raines,
completely,
Philip Raines, who's one of Hillary's former campaign chiefs, said this today. Let's listen.
There's no human being in the United States whose personal life, their infidelities, were looked at more than Bill Clinton. His accusers were afforded the opportunity to confront him. He was afforded the ability to defend himself.
Juanita, were you afforded the ability to confront Bill Clinton?
Oh gosh, I think I'll just laugh out loud right now.
Yeah, that's hilarious, isn't it?
It's disgusting. No human being was protected more than Bill Clinton was. They built this wall around him. And no human being was more harassed and ridiculed and trashed as Bill Clinton's victims were. I did get a time to speak, but it was only because I had Lisa Myers. She was one of the very few who believed in me and just stayed on that story until we got it through. And I commend her
Until
for
NBC
that.
was forced to air it. Yeah. NBC did not want to air that report. They were forced to air that report.
No, they
Paula,
didn't.
let you close this out.
Yeah.
Paula, I'll let you close this out, Paula. So these women now, Mika Brzezinski from MSNBC, and Gillibrand and others who are now these late hits against Bill Clinton. Do you think there might be any credibility to what they're saying? They now see the horror of sexual harassment and sexual assault, or is this all politics?
It's probably politics. I would imagine that it probably was. I just wish that these people would mention our names, when they are going back in time and saying, well, yeah, we are absolutely real people. But what gets me too is they only mention Monica Lewinsky. She was a consensual person that was doing stuff to Bill Clinton under the Oval Office desk. We were not. Yep. There's a different take on that. So.
Well, do either of you expect that Kirsten Gillibrand might call you to talk to you, and do you expect a call from her?
Oh, surely not.
Oh,
I'm sure.
Do you really think that's possible? No. I absolutely do not.
Well, she's supposed to be, hey, ladies, she's supposed to be the be-all and end-all on sexual harassment on Capitol Hill. Given the historic nature of the Bill Clinton assaults on women, she should call you up. She should apologize on behalf of all those so-called feminists who covered for Clinton all those years. Thank you both for joining us tonight. I know it was really, really a pleasure to see both of you, and we really appreciate your voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And when we come back,
to be here.
You're welcome. And when we come back, might the Clinton spell finally be breaking for the Democratic Party? Well, and what about the Bushes? Stay tuned. Clinton world and their enemies within the Democratic Party are engaged in kind of a family feud about whether or not they should relitigate Bill Clinton's past. This is what Josh Barrow of Business Insider titled his piece today. The Clintons held the Democratic Party hostage for 2 decades. Going on to write inside, the core problem is that the Democrats decided the Clintons were their people and then reasoned backward to their principles. So I have a question. Is it fair to argue that the GOP treated the Bushes the same way, and that President Trump has wrestled the party back to its Reagan roots? Joining us now from Washington is Ronald Reagan biographer extraordinaire Craig Shirley, and from Austin, Texas, Mark Upgrove. He's the author of the new book, The Last Republicans, Inside the Extraordinary Relationship Between George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush. It's great to see both of you.
Thank you. Let's
start with you, Craig, on this question of the legacy of the Bushes in the camp. Obviously, the Bushes didn't have their, the sexual scandals, other than the, I guess, the groping from the wheelchair rumor that we're hearing now. But they didn't have their sexual scandals. But nevertheless, there's clearly a break that has happened, for the most part, from the Bushes to the current Republican Party. Talk about that.
Well, the Bushes were always, Laura, an aberration to some degree. Look, George H.W. Bush was only president because he was Ronald Reagan's vice president for 2 terms. And in fact, a New York Times poll in 1988, after he beat Michael Dukakis, said that a majority of Americans voted him because they saw him as a continuation of the Reagan legacy. Obviously, he didn't continue that, and he pursued, basically big government republicanism, as did his son, George W. Bush. So they're both aberrations from the degree of the Republican Party, as the party's always traditionally been, at least in the modern era, for less government, more freedom, federalism, all those issues that animate Republicans centered on the principle of personal freedom, dignity, and rights. So there was kind of a natural exorcism that had to happen because they both ended up as perceived as failed presidencies.
And Mark, George W. Bush, whom I like very much personally, he left office with an abysmal approval rating. It was in the mid-20s by most accounts. The nation had turned against pretty much both wars in the Middle East. We had the mass economic collapse. He tried to push through immigration amnesty. That went down in flames. Harriet Miers, the Supreme Court, had to pull that back. We lost the House, we lost the Senate, and then we lost the presidency to Barack H. Obama. Yet in your book, you kind of make this argument that the Bushes are the real Republicans, and they're worried that that Trump will be the last Republican because he's not really a Republican. I find that analysis curious, given the carnage post-Bush to the Republican Party.
Well, I want to make clear that when I call them the last Republicans, that's really a type of establishment republicanism that the Republican electorate clearly rejected in the 2016 campaign cycle, to the surprise of everybody. And I think to a large extent, the Republican Party wanted to protect the establishment in the beginning of the cycle. They resisted the candidacy of Donald Trump. He won the nomination fair and square and went on to win the presidency. So there's no disputing that. But it is the end of a kind of republicanism where America was more engaged in the world.
Wait, hold on a second. The president just came back from this 12-day trip to Asia. He was in the Philippines, Vietnam, Korea, China. At the APEC summit, he went to Europe, talked about NATO. He went to talk to all the Muslim leaders. He went to Jerusalem. He went to meet the Pope. I mean, he's been around, and he wants to engage with the rest of the world. He just doesn't want us to be involved in endless wars, which in part helped elect Barack Obama. So the idea that he's some isolationist, that's ridiculous. That is such a Bush line, that, oh, he's an isolationist, he's a protectionist, he's a nativist. Those old tropes just aren't working anymore, Mark. And I think the more we hear them, the more people just start laughing when they hear them.
Well, I think that if you look at the Trump agenda, it was largely transactional. It was what deal can we get that's the best deal for America, and that's fine. I think the Bushes were pushing a different kind of agenda, a humanitarian agenda, human rights. You saw that.
It was a globalist agenda.
Well, that's
what
that's the
open
term.
Borders,
that's the term
open markets. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. That's the term that's used.
Craig,
and again, that's a very different kind of republicanism. Yeah.
It's focusing on America first. I want to play a soundbite from 1979. This is 1981, actually, from Ronald Reagan, for both of you, and have you quickly react. Let's watch.
It is my intention to curb the size and influence of the federal establishment and to demand recognition of the distinction between the powers granted to the federal government and those reserved to the states or to the people. All All of us need to be reminded that the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government.
Craig, I watched that from the 1981 inaugural, and I stood at the president's grave tonight, said a prayer for him and Nancy, and thanked him for what he did for this country. I watched that, and I wonder, what would he think today about the state of the Republican Party and the state of this country?
Well, he was always a party man. Once he switched parties, he supported Republicans, even those he didn't always agree with. But you know, that soundbite reminds me of how Reagan was such a devotee of the Constitution and the Declaration. He started out became a child of the Enlightenment, believing that the man was more important than the state. And that statement about the states creating the federal government, that's right out of the Federalist Papers. It's right out of Madison, which he avidly read. He was a American conservative. He believed that power flowed upward from the people to the national government, as opposed to, say, like a British conservative who believes that power flows down from the institutions to the individual. He was very centered on the rights and dignity and privacy of the American individual.
Hey, Mark, do you think Ronald Reagan would tweet? If he was alive during Twitter, do you think he'd tweet?
No,
yes,
I don't.
he would.
Ronald Reagan
we disagree. May I jump in here?
I'll make my point and then
go ahead, Mark.
No, I don't think he would. Reagan was really about civility, and when he went to Washington, he campaigned against a big government. But government actually got bigger during the Reagan administration. There were 3 platforms he campaigned on. One was ending the Cold War by a clear American victory, which he achieved largely, or helped to achieve. He wanted to end big government. Government got bigger, and he wanted to restore the Americans' pride in their nation.
Mark, we're out of time. We're out of time. But he would have tweeted. He would have tweeted. Craig, why? Because he knew that was the people's medium. People's medium.
Because he loved technology. He mastered commercial radio in the 30s. He mastered movies in the 40s. He mastered television in the 50s and 60s. He loved technology, and he loved the ability to communicate his message to a widest audience as possible.
But he would have tweeted
Reagan was alive today. If Reagan was alive today, he'd be using Facebook and he'd be using Twitter.
Yes, but he would
maybe
have
it wouldn't be just like Trump's tweets.
Honestly.
Yeah,
no, it wouldn't be.
All right. Yeah, it would be. He'd tweet, and we'd all love the tweets, let's face it. Great to have you both on. Thank you so much. I wish you were here at the library with me, though. And directly ahead, what should the Republican Party learn from the Al Franken groping scandal? And guess what? A rise in homelessness in the Golden State. We're going to tell you why right after this. Welcome back. Al Franken versus Roy Moore in the battle over equivalence. It's a debate that has drawn commentary from all corners, so it shouldn't surprise anyone that it drew the attention of Hillary Clinton, the never-ending book tour. Will that book tour ever end? What happened? What happened? You lost. Anyway, she had this to say to Rita Cosby on WABC Radio earlier today.
Clearly, he doesn't appear to be someone who will bring respect and honor to the state of Alabama. Look at the contrast between Al Franken accepting responsibility, apologizing, and Roy Moore and Donald Trump, who have done neither.
Respect from Hillary Clinton. Joining us now for reaction from Washington, Kelly Jane Torrance, Deputy Managing Editor of the Weekly Standard, and in New York, Ed Rollins, a Republican strategist who spent just a little bit of time over my shoulder on that Air Force One, who managed Ronald Reagan's 1984 campaign. Ed, I wish you were here. Kelly, I wish you were here. It's so beautiful. I know, but I think I hopped into Air Force One. I was like, come on, Rollins, how many cigars did he smoke in that Air Force One back there?
I rode that plane every place he went domestically for about 5 years. I had my own seat in it. It was that and the helicopter bring back a lot of memories. A lot of memories.
Oh, my goodness. Let's start with you, Kelly, on this Hillary Clinton coming out and talking about disgracing the office of the Senate, now she comes out and she says that, well, Bill Clinton's accusers, I guess, everybody had a chance to confront the accusers, and I mean, this stuff is crazy at this point.
It's hard not to laugh, Laura, isn't it? And this is a serious matter. In a way, it's not a laughing matter. But when I hear people talk about disgracing the Senate, I think of Ted Kennedy. I mean, this is a guy that basically killed a woman, and they're talking about disgracing the Senate? It's really kind of incredible, isn't it, that now they're worried about disgracing the Senate?
Yeah, Ed, the newfound moral conscience when it comes to Bill Clinton, I mean, it's so transparent, yet literally words like hero and courageous are being used to describe Kirsten Gillibrand today for saying that Bill Clinton should have stepped aside. Mika Brzezinski apparently called Bill Clinton a predator today. I mean,
well,
how many times has Bill Clinton been on Morning Joe?
Right. None of them called him a predator, or none of them basically raised the issues other than the two women that were on before. The bottom line is Hillary Clinton went on 60 Minutes, talked about Jennifer Flowers, called her a liar, told it was totally untrue. That had been an affair that had gone on for 12 years, which he later admitted. I mean, he basically didn't stop. I mean, the truth of the matter is, whatever may have happened in someone's life, hopefully by the time they get into public life, they change and they basically hold a higher standard, which I think is what Roy, there's no charges that Roy Moore has ever done anything in the last 35 years when he's been happily married, raised kids, been a very significant leader, and obviously the people of that state have an opportunity to pick someone who will represent their viewpoints. Bill Clinton hid the whole time and never stopped misbehaving. Monica Lewinsky was late in his term, but he had always been a womanizer, and he continued to be a womanizer immediately after he became president. And I think the difference between a Ronald Reagan, who always held the office in the highest esteem and always basically felt the country was so important and that he had to be a model for the country and was, I think to a certain extent there's no comparison whatsoever.
Kelly, let's move on to Roy Moore. The Republican Party in Alabama are still sticking by him. A lot of the establishment leaders and even others like Ted Cruz, Mike Lee say he should step aside. He's slipping in the polls. Any predictions here?
This is a tough one, Laura, and I really think there's not really a lot the GOP can do because the only thing they're suggesting is a write-in campaign for someone like, say, Luther Strange. People are even talking about Jeff Sessions, but it's clear that that will hand Doug Jones the victory, and it's a tough situation. Of course, I'm sure Roy Moore wished these allegations had come out sooner, but they're coming out now, and there's not a lot I think the GOP could do. I kind of wonder, though, Ed made a great point. These allegations, almost all are from about 40 years ago. I wonder, what if he had come out and said, hey, you know what, I did this stuff 40 years ago. It was wrong. Since then, I've gotten married. I'm a religious man, and I no longer act that way. What would people be saying then if he had come out and, basically apologized? I think it'd be a lot different.
That's an interesting point. Ed, finally, last word for you. What about this? Donald Trump hasn't really said anything about Roy Moore, but he slammed Al Franken. Should he say anything about Roy Moore?
No, I think he just moves on. I think the governor today put it very appropriately. She believes the women said. She did not disbelieve the women, but she basically said Roy Moore is the one who's going to be good for the state. If he gets elected, he's going to go there and he's going to vote for Supreme Court justices that basically make a difference, federal judges. Yeah. He's going to basically be a pro-life candidate, which is very important to an evangelical state, and he will represent the values of the state much better than certainly Bill Clinton's U.S. attorney. So.
Ed and Kelly, thank you so much. And it's really great to see both of you. And up next, the homelessness epidemic is overwhelming many cities across the country, including right here in California. Are Democrat policies to blame? A special report moments away. California is a beautiful state. The mountains, the ocean, the desert. It's entertainment, it's agriculture and high-tech output, the envy of the world. And California, it seems to have it all. I first came here 30 years ago as a college student and thought, wow, people actually live like this? This is paradise. But let's face it, the Golden State has changed a lot over the past 3 decades. And a lot of that change, frankly, has been for the worse. And a lot of it has been caused by disastrous liberal policies. Taxes have gone up and up. Regulations have stifled small business creation. Illegal immigration has exploded here. Jerry Brown called California a sanctuary state. Electricity prices are climbing because of stupid government mandates. The mandatory $15 minimum wage is hurting low-income workers because more retailers are now moving to automation to save the money. And we've seen a major squeeze on California's middle class as the number of working poor is growing. California's public pension systems are about $200 billion in the red. Oh, and while homelessness nationwide is declining, it's up here by 3%. By the way, sheltering and caring for the homeless cost taxpayers an estimated $80,000 per person per year. In fact, it's so bad that some of the major cities like San Francisco, Sacramento, and right here in the Los Angeles area now have what they call permanent tent cities or encampments. And it's all the homeless. Like this one that popped up not far from some of the wealthiest zip codes in the country.
Do you think that the problem with homelessness has gotten worse over the past 5 years in Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's worse. It's getting worse. There's so much people out of a home.
They keep growing and growing. Like I'll notice them in different spots, not just here. You know what I mean? Like this is one of the bigger ones, and then Skid Row. But there's little spots alongside all the freeway entrances.
Do you think that the city government here cares?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they would rather make us disappear than to be near that building over there, which is City Hall.
The city government in Los Angeles is all Democrats. Do you think, and they haven't done anything? Do you think it's time for a change?
Yeah, and it's sad because I'm also a Democrat too. I'm also a Democrat, and it's a shame. I'm shameful of these people that they're treating us like this. I've even contacted a lot of the senators about the situation down here, and all I get is that we'll get back with you. And as a fellow Democrat, I think they need to really look at what's going on, because I even told them I'm a Democrat and I voted for them. So why do I have to wait this long?
City government's failed you.
Yeah.
And the city government's run by which party?
The Democrats, of course.
Amazing. Well, it has been run by Democrats, basically a supermajority Democrat state. This beautiful, gorgeous, amazing place has been brutalized by decades of liberal policies. Of course, the sanctuary status, high taxation, crippling environmental regulations. Liberalism has ruined a once idyllic state in many ways. Now, there's an exodus out of California, and while the population continues to re-elect wave after wave of liberal leaders that only compound the state's crisis. Joining us now with reaction from Los Angeles is Shirley Hussar, who's the CEO of Urban Game Changers, an urban community activist group, along with Clay Kane, a Democratic activist. Clay and Shirley, great to see both of you. Clay, let's start with you. Why is this working, Democratic policies in Los Angeles? Just focus on L.A. for a moment. We won't go up to the problems in San Francisco. But you heard from the homeless people in that piece that it's gotten worse under Democrat leadership. They're living in the tents.
Well, Laura, listen, I have been homeless. I was homeless as a teenager, so this is a very personal story to me. But I think it really minimizes the story to just look at just Democrats. I mean, when you look back at this goes back to the early 1980s. It's a very complicated issue. You have drug addiction that was never dealt with. To say that, oh, this is just a Democratic issue would be like blaming a state like Mississippi, which is the poorest state in the country, on Republicans because it's a red state. I think it's unfair to do, and it minimizes the true horror that people go through who are homeless. I can relate to this.
Shirley, the issue of illegal immigration, which we didn't delve into much in this piece, but from the time that I've walked those same tents, there's a lot of illegal immigrants who are homeless as well. They come here, they try to get jobs, sometimes they can't find jobs, and they don't have any sponsors or families to live with. And so they live among the homeless. That is also a big problem for this state of California. And you've spent enormous amount of time in these permanent encampments.
Yes, absolutely. I tell you, Laura, the infrastructure of California is being destroyed, is being demised by Jerry Brown, Kevin DeLeon, and Eric Garcetti. They have personally instructed the police officers not to enforce law, to allow the illegal immigrants to do so much, to cause so much damage in the homelessness. Look, we've had money in this state. You're talking about a state that you can't compare this to Mississippi. Come on, Clay. Let's get real. California, at one point, we were the 5th largest economy in the world. We're still in the top 10. So you have a state that's in the top 10 of the economy, and yet, no, let me finish, because of the financial issues that are going on in this state, there's a misappropriation of funds. We have hepatitis A. We have measles going on. We have Laramie disease that just happened over at Disneyland. We have San Diego that just spent $2 million towards sanitation of the homelessness. The homelessness in California is disrupted because of the illegal immigration and the misappropriation of movement of money within the state. Democrats have failed this state, and they continue to fail this state. They're destructive with their governmental programs that filtrate within their pockets, that have killed our community.
Shirley, with all due respect, according to your bio, according to your bio, you worked for Governor Schwarzenegger, who put California, who was a Republican, and put California in actual bankruptcy. So I mean, it's not just Democrats. I mean, that was somebody that you actually worked for, and there has been no documentation, no proof that anybody is homeless because of undocumented workers. I wasn't homeless because of undocumented workers. I was homeless because rents were too high. My mother didn't have access to good health care. My mother didn't have access to good education. It was not because of undocumented workers. And for you to say that, it is scapegoating, it's offensive. And you know there is no one who is homeless because of an undocumented worker. That is ridiculous.
Oh, that is not true. There's so many people that are undocumented that have killed us there. We have 6% black people left in California.
You guys, we're going to have you both back because this is a ridiculous amount of short time for this. I think what Shirley was trying to say, though, is as long as we have a single American homeless, a veteran homeless, a family homeless living on the streets, why are we bringing in more problems? I think that's what she was saying. Not that illegal immigrants.
We don't need
cause
I
homelessness.
totally disagree. That's a scapegoat, a smokescreen, and it's offensive, Shirley.
So we should bring in. So wait, guys. Stop. So what Clay is saying is that we should bring in more indigent people so they can have them join the indigent people.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's different policies you can create. To blame on undocumented workers is passing the buck, and it's offensive.
I'm not blaming it on it. We're blaming it on the government. I'm not blaming it on the illegal immigrants.
You are.
Guys, we're out of time. We're out of time.
And they have no infrastructure that's helping. You are wrong.
I think.
I'll see you next time, Shirley. And I hope you enjoy working for Governor Schwarzenegger, who put California in bankruptcy.
We'll continue this.
Appointee
he put California in bankruptcy.
Guys, I'm going to have to buy a vowel. We're going to have to just get we're going to have to cut your mics. All right, coming up, I love you both, but coming up, comedian Sarah Silverman laments all our heroes are being torn down. So maybe we shouldn't be making celebrities and politicians our heroes to begin with. Stay with us. Welcome back. Comedian Sarah Silverman had an interesting reaction to the fall of her friend, comedian Louis C.K., who's among the waves of celebrities taken down by credible misconduct claims. Roll the tape.
It's messy and it's complicated and it is going to hurt, but it's necessary and we'll all be healthier for it. And it sucks, and some of our heroes will be taken down, and we will discover bad things about people we like, or in some cases, people we love.
Heroes? What? Louis C.K., a hero? Admitted to inappropriately touching himself in front of women multiple times. Blech. Joining me now, sorry for that introduction, Raymond, is a reaction broadcaster, New York Times bestselling author Raymond Arroyo. Raymond, I've never thought Sarah Silverman was funny. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are fans of hers. Yeah. Never made me laugh once. I never got her. But what about this?
We share this idea. You know, she sounds like she should join a monument conservation movement. I mean, we don't want to tear our heroes down. Heroes? This is a hero? This guy was a masher. He flashed. He's horrible. But Sarah Silverman is also a woman who portrays herself having sex with God.
Filthy comic.
She has contributed to a coarseness in society and a level of conversation about intimate things that kids and families don't need to hear, so I'm not going to go any further.
All right, what else do we got this week?
Well, Jay-Z, he had a New York Times op-ed where he's arguing, very upset, about a friend of his, a rapper, Meek Mill, who has been parole. He violated his parole. He went to jail. Jay-Z writes today, we've got to do something about this. We need reform. And he makes this startling claim. In 2015, 1/3 of the 4.65 million people on parole or probation were black. Well, that means 2/3 aren't black. So that's a good thing, isn't it?
Wait a second. Why is Jay-Z suddenly like a political commentator or analyst?
Well, I think Jay-Z is looking out for himself. Remember, this is a man who was dealing crack at 13, stabbed his producer, and shot his brother. So if I were he, I'd be worrying about parole, too.
I guess it's only up from there.
I guess.
All right, so what about dogs? You're going to tease me about dogs.
Well,
15
I'm
seconds.
going to ask you about this. There's this new Viagen Pets. They will preserve the DNA of your beloved
junkyard dog Annie the Hellhound.
They will preserve the dog. Would you do this? Would you clone your dog
Never.
for $25,000?
Never. I'm trying to get rid of my dogs. You know? I don't want to clone the dogs.
I think I know better. Can I talk about my favorite moment of the week?
What?
On the show?
Quick.
This was it. Can you roll that?
Roll it. I want to know where that missing hard drive went. How does a hard drive jump out of a car? Where's the hard drive? Who took that hard drive? Where's the hard drive?
I know what I'm giving you for Christmas, a hard drive.
Oh, get out. Don't
Thanks
go
for
away.
being here.
We'll be back in a moment from the Reagan Library. Before we sign off tonight, a huge thank you to everyone at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. John Highbush, you're the best. Everyone come here if you have a chance. Visit this beautiful place. Great tribute to one of our greatest presidents ever. Shannon Bream and Fox News at Night up.